Hello and welcome to Wicklow Good News with me, Jillian Godsil. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Geraldine Kavanagh, who is the owner of Wicklow Wild Foods and who is a forager. Is that your correct title, Geraldine? A forager?
Yes, yeah, botanical forager.
Botanical forager.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell me a little
It's
bit
not
about
the. Go ahead. Yeah.
tell me a bit about the background, because I was reading your website. As a child, you were also always interested in foraging for food. Am I right?
Well, I was always interested in the outdoors, so I've spent a very large percent of my life outside. I'm not too fond of the indoors, so as a child, I was always out, never watching television, just roaming around Avondale, actually, because that's where we grew up, just beside Avondale. So we had 5,000 acres of forest to play in.
Wow.
And that was back in the day when you just came home for your dinner. So, we were gone all the time. So since I was very small, I've always had a sort of connection with plants and noticed plants a lot. And so as I got older, I started to learn, well, what the names of the plants were. And then older still, I got into organic farming and also started to learn about edible plants. So it was just something that was a hobby for many years, because my first wild food book I still have, and that's 26 years old. So I've been doing it for a long time. So it was just something that I just love, and I find it hard to switch off. Like everywhere I go, all I is plants. And so I kind of got to a stage where I think it was in May one year, I was looking at the hedgerows and seeing that there was so much food to eat in the hedgerows and nobody was eating it. So I said to a couple of friends, would you like to come out on Saturday for a walk, and I'll show you all the edible plants and we'll have a picnic? And so they were delighted. And then on Monday, I had a call from friends of theirs, friends of friends, saying, could we do the same? And that's kind of how the business just happened, just like that. I started doing walks, and then I started doing the farmers markets. And I had a full range of all sorts of food that was simply prepared, but all contained wild ingredients. So I would have like nettle soup, wild garlic soup, fresh porcini mushrooms, scones with seaweed, all sorts of syrups and cordials and vinegars, and they were all really nice. And it was a really great experience, because when you're standing at your market stall, people come up to taste your food, so you get to meet your customers, and then you get to watch their reaction when they're tasting the food, and that's the most pleasurable thing, because I'd never had anyone who said they didn't like anything. So that was it's just a good learning thing for someone who's starting out with a food business. If you actually get to meet the customers first and get their what's the word,
Approval.
Forgotten the word.
Approval, feedback.
Feedback. Yeah. Feedback. Yeah.
Feedback. Speaking about foraging, this spring I live in the village of Coolboy, so it's very rural around here, and I walk most days. And up the top of the hill where I walk, I didn't realize that I've heard it before, with the wild garlic. So this is the first time I harvested wild garlic, and I brought it home. And my daughter, who's a great cook, she's a vegetarian, very good.
Yeah.
She made wild garlic pesto.
That's delicious.
Oh my God! It was. I mean, we made so much. Kat said, no more, Mum. But we made it, and then we ate it for the week. So my mouth was burning from the wild garlic. I literally had a burn the whole time. But we had it every day, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll leave that again. Yeah. So I mean, like, and the joy of having, and I know as a child I would have picked blackberries and made them into blackberry puddings. There's a joy, isn't there? It's not just plants are wonderful, but when you harvest them or forage for them, there's an extra layer of delight, isn't there?
Yeah, it's something that you don't get from going to buy food in the supermarket. It's some sort of very lovely connection with nature, because nowadays, with the way that we live and the way that we work, we often feel disconnected from nature, and we don't really know how to get that connection back. And sometimes it's just a matter of just spending time in nature, but foraging, I think, gives you a really nice connection and a nice link back to nature, and it opens your eyes to what's around you and to all the gifts that are around you and all the medicine and all the food.
I was going to ask you actually about, you mentioned medicine, but so what type of plants are medicinal, and what would you use them for?
To be honest, pretty much every wild plant is medicinal. It has something in it.
Wow.
Now you also have to be careful, because not all wild plants are edible. That's something that I teach on my walks. You have to make sure you know what you're eating, because some plants are poisonous and even in small quantities. But every single plant has some properties that will be good for something. It could be good for your skin, it could be good for sunburn, it could be good for hay fever, it could be good for pain, it could be good for emotions. Every single plant has a special gift, you know, that that is there for you. You just have to learn each one. And also you can use your intuition in some ways, but you know, for learning about herbal medicine, there's plenty of books that can be a guide to show you how to get started.
I mean, your walks are starting again this Saturday. Well, actually, it'll be last Saturday because it'll go out next week. But on the 11th, your guided foraging walks are opening up again. So you can teach people, because it's hard to learn from books sometimes. I find you need to have somebody there to say, that's a whatever, eat that, or do eat that. And what type of things would people find when they go out with you? What type of plants would they pick?
It's changing all the time. So in springtime, we would be looking at leaves, green leaves. So there could be 20 or 30, 40 different wild greens that you could eat, that you could make into different, you know, drinks, and that you could use in salads, that you could make into medicine. So in springtime, we're looking at a lot of greens and then flowers. And as summer comes in, you get more flowers, more fruit, some mushrooms. And then when we're coming into August, we'll be looking at berries and fruit and mushrooms. And then September, October is everything. Like the greens come back. There's nuts, there's berries, there's fruit, there's roots. There's just so much to eat in the autumn. So it's a constantly changing thing. So some people would come on a walk in, say, April, and then they would come back again in September, because we'd go to a different place and we would look at completely different things. So,
and of course, Wicklow is a wonderful county for its rich fauna and landscapes.
Yeah, we're very lucky because we have a lot of different types of habitat. Like if you were in the Midlands, of course, you wouldn't have the seashore. You might not have higher mountains. So all the different habitats have different edible things as well. So for instance, if you're up in the mountains, you'll get heather and you'll get wild blueberries. If you're down at the seashore, the plants are completely different to what you'll find inland. So it is a super place to forage, and it's so big, and many parts of Wicklow are uninhabited as well. So there's a lot of, even though, you know, it's close to Dublin, there's still lots and lots of areas where you won't see anybody. So we're very lucky to live here.
And so you had your own business. You're studying the walks. You used to produce food for farmers markets. You don't do that now because you were interviewed in the Irish Times. And what happened then?
Well, somebody came out from the Irish Times, came on one of my walks, wrote a lovely article. I made a lovely picnic and there was a really nice photo. And one of the guys from Glendalough Distillery, Gary, was reading the paper. And it was just a very fortuitous, because they had just got a new still that they specifically wanted to use for distilling gin. And they had made a couple of batches, but they wanted to do something different. And they wanted to make gin that was somehow from Wicklow. And then Gary said he was reading the paper. He was like, oh my God, we could do this. We could put wild plants in the gin. So they called me up. And they're
native Wicklow wild plants. They're not like invented ones.
Yeah, no, so you're basically expressing the county in the bottle, because I know that we didn't have such a sense of this idea of terroir in Ireland.
What is that, sorry?
Well, terroir is a word that's not so commonly used in Ireland, but if you go to France, say, and you get, you know, champagne from the Champagne region, if you go to Italy and you get Parma ham, or you get Parmesan, or, you know, in the Mediterranean countries and in lots of parts of the world, they have region specific foods and drinks that can only really be from that place. You can't say that you know, champagne, although you can make something similar. So it's like an expression of the very area that you live in, because the soil, the mountains, the air, and the qualities of the area, they'll be like, say if you go up to Glendalough in springtime and on an April day, and you'll smell gorse and you'll smell pine, and it'll be just a very specific smell to that area because of the different blend of plants that are there. And the same in the summer and the autumn and winter. So the idea we had was to express that, and to express that idea of terroir in the product and try to preserve it. So when you're working with alcohol, that's quite easy, because you know you can capture a flavor and then you can preserve it by just distilling it. So
that is very exciting. So it's not just, I know in recent years gin is the new whatever it is, the new drink, whatever, and I know botanicals, like when I was first drinking, sounds terrible, when I was a young person, botanicals, I only heard botanicals the last 10 years or so it's become more popular.
Yeah.
But it's a lovely idea. I really like the idea of it being from Wicklow. And actually, it's not just the water, it's the plants as
Yeah.
well. Well,
Yeah.
that's
No, and it's
exciting. And you were saying you do seasonal ones as well, seasonal
yeah.
gins.
So we have a spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Everything's picked by hand. If you see my hands close up, you'll see the evidence
The
of that.
picker hands.
Yeah. So we came up with a recipe that would kind of transport you to Wicklow on a particular day in a particular season, and because it's actually very easy, because if you think about, okay, if I was sitting out in summer, what would I smell? And it's actually quite easy then just to go and pick the plants and then to come up with a recipe. And so we would harvest like maybe between I don't know, maybe 50 different botanicals over the year, not in enormous quantities, but because you don't need a huge amount for each distillation. And we have a small still, it's a 500 litre still, so you know, you pick a basket of this, a basket of that. Like today, well, I don't have a lot here, but I'm these are not exactly wild, but we actually use black currants as well, and blackcurrant leaves, and behind me here elderflower. Can you see that?
Oh, elderflower, yes, yeah, love elderflower.
Yeah, so we use a lot of elderflower, and then like there's a tree over there full of crab apples, which I've got my eye on. So we'll be using all different ingredients all throughout the year. Everything is picked fresh, and then it's brought to the distillery. So I go to the distillery every evening, and I put the ingredients in the still, and then they're distilled the following day. So we start 14, I think, doing this, and we made 2,000 bottles that year. And because we were doing something very different, people started to talk about us. Back then there was only three Irish gins on the market, so the gin craze hadn't happened, and the whole botanical craze hadn't happened either. It was still, most people will be drinking a very plain gin. So we started off 2,000 bottles that year, and now we've gone to I don't even know, at least maybe coming up to 300,000 bottles a year.
300,000, that's amazing.
It's been a huge success. So it's been very, very good.
That is exciting.
Yeah,
very exciting. And I was on your website too, so going back to the things like your recipes, I just suddenly saw gorse flour ice cream. I love the smell of gorse. It's like coconut.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that was one of my recipes that was featured in the Irish Times, and I think I might have been one of the first people to make a gorse flour ice cream a good few years back, but now lots of people are making it.
Well, I'm going to be making it now, because I just like, oh no, it's the wrong. The gorse flour is gone.
It's gone. That's the thing with the foraging, it's gone. But you can do some gooseberry and elderflower tart today.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's cool. But definitely,
there's always, yeah.
I just think the gorse flour was so strong this spring, and maybe it was because of the lack of traffic, or I don't know. I really smelt it a lot this year.
The weather was very hot as well, so that when you have good hot weather, it brings up the oils in the plants, so you can really smell them. Yeah, the gorse was fantastic. We got a lot of gorse this year.
Amazing.
And we pick it by hand, so a labour of love. So we put gorse into our spring gin, and it is a labour of love. It's a bit of a painful job, but there's no other way to do it.
Wow. When I next drink that drink, I will drink it with respect for sure. All those pricked fingers. Wow. So it's great news for you. Now you're busy anyway, right? And obviously with the Glendalough Distillery, they're keeping you very busy, but your walks are starting again. So people go to your website, it's Wicklow Wild Foods. They can go and line up for a walk. And I think there is a joy. There's definitely a joy about picking something. It's not even like growing is nice. I like to grow some herbs and stuff, but picking stuff from the fields, from the hedgerows, and then making something of it or eating it, that's exciting. There's a joy.
Yeah, and maybe because, I mean, you have maybe more of a respect because nature has provided you with this food, and it's just there, and it's grown naturally. There's no chemicals, and it's like to me, like going foraging is like going on a treasure hunt. So I would, if at any time of the year when I go out, I'll come back with something, and you don't have to go and get out 500 jars and start making tons of jam, because some people think, oh God, if I go foraging, I'm going to have to scale up. But you can literally just pop out and just pick a few dandelion leaves and pop them into a salad, or get a few heads of elderflower today and make yourself some elderflower champagne, or you can pop out, and the nettles are still around, you can make yourself some nettle tea or nettle soup, or so I always encourage people not to think it's just this big thing that you have to change your life. But if you had a little bit of wild food in your diet every day, you will add lots of extra nutrition
You have
and natural
just
medicine.
you've
Yeah.
just sparked a memory for me. As children, we found a recipe in an old we used to go to my aunt's farm down in Cork, and there was an old almanac of some kind, and for elderflower champagne. And we went
Yeah.
home. My brother and I, we made it back in Dublin, and we had drank it all summer. I think there must have been some alcohol in it, but
Yeah.
the bottles. My dad had these
Yeah.
like Grouch like top. They'd pop. They'd explode in
They
the
did.
garage,
Yeah.
and we'd
Yeah,
have it every day.
Yeah, if you don't release the I suppose it's carbon dioxide, the bottles will actually shatter. The glass bottles will shatter. It builds up so much. So
these will just pop off. They popping. It was just you just
yeah.
broken a childhood memory for me. Wow.
Yeah, the bottles popping. Yeah, I know that sound. We have bottles popping.
Do you know what I admire about you too, Geraldine, is that you look into a hedgerow and you see food. You know, many people would just see grass or green or whatever. You know, they don't actually see the food. I think that's a gift that you have. You said earlier it was very easy to do that. I think it's because you have a gift and a real feeling for, obviously, for plants and nature. It's a love that you have that makes it more amazing. So I'm going to say that people, if they want to get hold of you to go on the walks, it's Wicklow Wild Foods, and it's Geraldine Kavanagh.
Yeah,
they can your numbers. They can ring you or email you and book in for your one of your walks.
Yep.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Geraldine. I really appreciate it. And it's fascinating. It'll make me look differently when I go out for my walks. I'll be peering into the hedgerows. And thank you to Marlena Murphy producing, and Gavin Dowd and Sam. And until next time on Wicklow Good News, be good, be safe, and keep on helping others. Thank you.
Thank you.